Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Draves. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at Berea City Schools. The board and the superintendent asked me to do a presentation on bullying, and I asked a few of my colleagues, Mrs. Julie DeFrancisco, who is the administrative intern at Berea Mid Park High School. She's also the director of our Titan Academy. Mr. Nicholas Doer, who is our administrative intern at Grindstone Elementary, serving the role as an assistant principal, and Mr. Nick Hall, who is our administrative intern at Berea Mid Park Middle School, also serving the role as an assistant principal. So I wanted to make sure that I had some individuals from all three grade levels giving their input to this presentation. As we talk about bullying, I think you'll see that it kind of manifests itself and looks different at each level. Um, the I think the reason why the board and Mrs. Wheeler wanted me to talk about this was that it's a bullying. The term is overused, and we want to. She wanted me, the superintendent, Mrs. Wheeler, wanted me to be able to help inform and educate the community on what bullying is and what bullying isn't. Wanted the community to know how we deal with it, to clear up any misconceptions with regard to that. I think more importantly, what to do if you know bullying is occurring, where to go, who to contact, and then what to expect once that process is begun. So, I think one of the things that we know is that the more that we overuse a term like bullying, it tends to then chip away at its meaning. And so that was another, I think, intent behind this presentation is to simply make it clear on what it is and what it isn't so that we didn't overuse the term. This presentation will be um, posted on my part of the web page underneath my name, which is in the administration tab for Berea City School District website. So, what is bullying? There's actually a pretty specific definition, as the bullet points say here: unwanted, aggressive behaviors with a power imbalance and repeated and targeted behavior. So it could be a group of youths or one youth, and it should be observed over time, repeated. Often, what we're mistaken for bullying is actually peer conflict, and we'll talk about the difference in that. So, let's an example, perhaps, of something that could fall into that category of, every day, one person comes into the lunchroom and insists on the other person giving them lunch money. And it happens every day. And it's obviously unwanted, it's aggressive, there's a power imbalance, and it's repeated, targeted on a specific individual. So that would be an example of that. Um, from the investigation side, when we begin to really look into bullying, what needs to be understood is that it's often difficult. We have to be able to prove that it's happening, and so obviously with cameras, it's becoming easier. But we have to have some evidence and proof that there is repeated targeted behavior, power imbalance, and unwanted aggressive behaviors. As parents often get frustrated is sometimes that's difficult to prove. Doesn't mean that we don't intervene. It just means sometimes to prove that something truly is bullying becomes difficult. Often we don't find out about it in time. We don't find out about it until much later. And what I'm trying to convey is that when we do find out about these things, we do act, and we have a process which I'll go over with you to illustrate what that process looks like. Different types of bullying. Um, we have, as we have here, verbal bullying, social bullying, and physical bullying. And They're all pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, verbal bullying is intentionally daily picking on a specific student. So, for instance, at the elementary level, it might be making fun of someone's name that it rhymes with something inappropriate. Social bullying happens. Um, Go on, and maybe perhaps this could be telling a lie about someone. Our problem, this often a lot of this happens at the middle level, and then physical bullying is the third type, and the results in someone putting their hands on another person or taking or breaking one's things. At the elementary level, it might result in someone being pushed or kicked at the playground. Now, keep in mind, repeatedly, same kids doing this over and over again. At the secondary level, it might be stealing someone's belongings or knocking belongings out of someone's hands. And once again, repeated. What bullying is not. Bullying is not rough play. Taunting in a playful manner, and taunting is not pure conflict. And so, what often gets reported to us at the school as bullying from mom or dad's perspective, even perhaps from the child's perspective, when you do dig into it, as much as people might not want to hear this, it is often one of these things: rough play, taunting, going back and forth, and then peer conflict. So, what we tend to look for is the relationship between the children. If we can see, and often, as I said, cameras help with this, body expressions, body language, atmosphere, and that all helps us try to determine, what is and what is not bullying. We obviously do talk to others involved to get witness statement reports and try and do our due diligence with regard to making a true determination as best we can. Peer conflict refers to a mutual disagreement or hostility between peers or groups of peers. So, mutual disagreements, students have equal or similar power within the situation. Could be someone said something to another about another person, and often students then come back at them, and then this conflict ensues. Often, our parents want to talk about who started it, and we understand that there's usually someone who starts a conflict. And I think kind of the best piece of advice is, if someone is doing this to you, just you need to go let an adult know. Continuing to develop and work our peer mediation plan in all of our schools to help work on these peer conflicts, as our goal in education is to educate, not necessarily to always discipline. We want to try and be as proactive as possible. And so, through our PBIS, our positive behavior interventions and supports, and looking at where conflicts are happening and between whom, we try and target those situations and people to make sure that we're avoiding these as much as possible. Of course, kids are going to be kids and conflicts are going to happen. And our role is to try and teach kids how to get through those conflicts, and come out on the other side. Peer conflict is natural and it is a part of adolescence. Our job as adults is to teach. Our job as parents is to teach. Our job as educators is obviously to do the same. Teachers, counselors, and administrators are always available to assist students in managing peer conflict. You have to let us know. And I think one of the things that becomes more frustrating as you sit in our seat here is that often the first time we hear about a conflict or alleged bullying is on social media. And we really can't do anything about it unless we know about it. So, please contact your building administrator, and then they will begin the process. If number one, either to intervene between two peers, or if it's truly bullying, to open up a bullying investigation. We actually have pretty specific guidelines. Contrary to popular belief, our actions with regard to bullying are guided by board policy, and not to bore you, but it's board policy 551701, which quite frankly is what we have to follow. And so, any student or parent who believes that they or their child have been the victim of aggressive behavior or others, should report to the building principal or assistant principal. And of course, you're always welcome to contact me at the board office. One of my responsibilities is bullying and bullying reporting. Just want to reemphasize this again: posting to social media solves nothing. It might make you feel better in the moment, but if we want to try and help resolve problems, please contact us. All complaints that are reported will be promptly investigated by the building administration. I do want to say that this doesn't guarantee that you're going to be happy with the result. As I said, oftentimes there's maybe more to the story than what, say, a parent's being told or what the child is indicating. And so we do investigate it. It might not always mean that we're finding it, but we always do investigate it. After the investigation is complete, a report is always filed by the building level administrator with the findings of the allegations. So, once again, what do you do if you suspect bullying in our schools? Call the appropriate building level administrator. We must intervene and seize the opportunity to help all of our young people grow. We can't do anything unless we know about it. Once the complaint has been made, allow our team um, to investigate and to follow our established procedures. These are our procedures here. I'll go into this. So this is a form that gets filled out. There's 3 steps to the process. Step one is used when a student brings an initial complaint. It could be a parent brings an initial complaint to the building administrator. So just to be clear on step one, often a discussion is had and talking to the child, talking to the parent to see, is this the way we want to go? If we can determine right away that this is a pure conflict, then we might not go into this step. But if it's insisted upon, then we do. Description of what the complaint or issue is. Then the administrator will begin his investigation. It could take student statements and interviewing people, talking to all available parties, perhaps going on the video. If it's not a valid complaint, then we would determine no action taken. If it's a valid complaint, but it's not bullying, that could be a different thing. And it's a valid complaint of bullying, and then we would go to step two. As you can see here, then a summary of the investigation would go there, and then any administrative comments. And these are all the things that could be done. An act of harassment, intimidation, and bullying took place. Refer to a counselor or recommendation to outside resources. A cease and desist order is put in place. Resource officer meets with them. Charges could be filed with the police, and disciplinary action could also be taken. And then 3, finalize the full investigation where it gets mailed over to me, a final bullying report, and then email a copy or mail a copy or present that in person to the parents or child. But we're not going to give it to the child without also letting the parents know the date when that occurred, including also follow up. You know, occasionally when there is bullying found, or even pure conflict, where a party or 2 parties, both sides could be wrong, consequences could be handed out. And, this might look, it differs varying on the level of the whatever the infraction might have been. So it could be a lunch detention, an after school detention, which could be 30 minutes or an hour and a half. It could be a Saturday school detention, a cease and desist order, an out of school suspension, a bus suspension, expulsion, and of course, if it involved perhaps a um, something really, really serious, the police could be contacted. Each situation is addressed according to the circumstances. One of the things that gets more frustrating for parents is they believe the school didn't do anything with regards to bullying because we can't tell them what we did to the other student or what the outcome was. And so, because of FERPA law, we cannot, nor we're not permitted to identify the outcome or the discipline that the other child received. And so, we understand that this can be frustrating. It is what it is. Um, the reality is that because of FERPA, As we wouldn't want to tell people what consequences perhaps your child got, we don't. We give the other child obviously the same thing. So there are many cases where bullying is not found and it's addressed in ways other than disciplinary. There are many times where it's disciplinary, but we simply cannot let the other party know what was happening. As you know, as parents, our world is so much more difficult now. 24/7 access to each other. And with that, being young, not quite understanding all the ramifications of their actions, the ability to post, misunderstanding of things going away. For instance, if you tweet something, they think that there's no permanent record. There always is. This has obviously caused more problems, and so 24/7 access does lead to difficulties interacting with peers. We just implore all parents to really talk about the consequences. That once you tweet something out or put something on Facebook, that it's there forever. It's like putting it on a billboard on 71. There is always an IP address that can be found to go back to it. Even though you delete it, it's still there. So the proper way is to make sure parents are monitoring, they're teaching and giving guidelines and standards, not allowing the children to have 24/7 access to their phone, making sure that they're looking into the phone and making sure their kids are using it appropriately. Um, one of the things we have to bring up here is that oftentimes, a majority of the times, the conflict between peers happens electronically outside of school. The schools are not the world's police, and we can't, unless it comes into our building and it impacts significantly the educational process, we really can't do anything about it. And that doesn't mean that bullying isn't happening or inappropriate peer conflict isn't happening outside of school. Quite frankly, it is. But what that means is we don't have any purview to be able to deal with it. The police do. And so calling the police would be the best course of action there. Now, there are times where something might spill into the school that we do have to deal with it. So that's not an absolute, but the reality is parents need to be really, really aware of what their children are doing with their electronic technology, put parameters in place, expectations, hold them accountable. And if something does happen, please let the appropriate people know. Sometimes it is us, oftentimes it's the police. This slide is really, it's not just about detentions. Our job is to try and teach how to use electronic tools the right way, how to interact with peers the right way. So students who have difficulty mastering positive behaviors will be given interventions to try and help them. We do lessons K through 12 through our guidance department um, on how to interact with peers. And so oftentimes we see these as opportunities to work with our children. The interventions could include individual behavior contracts, class check-ins and checkouts, reflection sheets, and alternatives to discipline. So we understand that if someone does something wrong to your child, oftentimes you want a pound of flesh. You want to make sure that they pay for it. We Sometimes that does happen, but oftentimes we are way more interested in trying to help educate the kid and get them on the right path to avoid these behaviors in the future, as is our job. We are everyone in the district, from cafeteria workers, bus drivers, teachers, and administrators, are mandated yearly to train on bullying. So all staff have bullying awareness and reporting guidelines that are refreshed every year. We do work with our kids, as I mentioned, on age appropriate instruction for all students yearly on bullying. And we have a whole program in our schools, PBIS, and we focus on our positive behaviors and supports. Services beyond the classroom and in Berea City Schools. Our school counselors are always the first line of contact for our students' emotional needs. So if mom and dad, you're feeling like there's a need for help, call the school counselor, and if they can't help, they will find someone. We have this wonderful resource now in all of our buildings, school and family support specialists, really certified social workers in all of our buildings that can also help. Number one, kids problem solve. Number two, families get the help that they need. And we also have Guidestone therapists on site in all of our buildings that are also there to be able to help support our families. So to recap, um, just kind of want to go over, this is really an informational and educational presentation. And I want to thank Julie, Nick, and Nick for helping me put together. We're going to post this on my site, and if any, we're going to use it. Hopefully, if a parent has questions about bullying, they can refer to this presentation, and also, hopefully, understanding that we don't want to begin to overuse this term. We want to know what bullying is and is not. Know that the district is committed to um, trying to eliminate and eradicate bullying from our schools. But as we know, kids are kids, and we need to take opportunities when either peer conflict or bullying happens, so that we can intervene, and nothing else happens as a result of that. We are here. The first thing, if you know of something, and it could be minor, call. Let us know. We want to encourage you. The first time we're hearing about something, hopefully is not on social media, but it's a call to us, and we will begin our investigation if necessary. Now, that'll be a conversation. Oftentimes, it's not, as we had talked about. Oftentimes, it's peer conflict, and the more that we learn about the situation, then the more that we can try and figure out how to move forward with the children. Sometimes it is bullying, and then we have to open up our process and do a true investigation. So, if anyone has any questions, my name is Mike Draves, once again, the Assistant Superintendent, and my email is mdraves1@bereaschools.org. Thank you. Have a good day.